Morning everybody. We're approaching the Sabbath of Lugnasah on the 1st of August or the 2nd of August, depending when you want to celebrate it. I always regard Lugnasah as a little bit of a movable feast, and you know, you have to feel when the time is right you do it. So you know, sometimes we've left it a week, maybe two, before we celebrate Lugnasah, but I think we're going to do it this year on Monday the 2nd of August. So Lugnasah is sometimes known as the first harvest. It has two names. It has the name Lammas, which comes from the Anglo-Saxon Llafmas, if I have pronounced that correctly, which means loaf mass. And it's traditional at this time to bake a loaf. Some people bake quite an elaborate loaf in the shape of a plait or the shape of a sun, and break that at the Lugnasah festival. And the Celtic name for it is Lugnasah, and that's said to be named after the god, the Celtic god Lugh, the bright god. So whatever it is, it's the first harvest, it's the grain harvest. Although we are harvesting more than grain at the moment. We're looking at our garden. We've got gluts of broad beans, runner beans, onions, potatoes, more cucumbers than you can shake a stick at, as my dad would have said, and tomatoes. So there's lots and lots of stuff ripening, coming to fruition at this time of year, but this is not the last of it. This is only the first harvest, if you like. It is also traditional to have some sort of sheaf of grain on the altar, if possible, and also to make a sort of corn maiden at this time of the year. And on the physical plane, the year is beginning to die, it's beginning to wind down. There's still lots of sun, we're still hoping for lots of sun to carry on with the ripening of the fruit, ripening of the vegetables, and the production of seed for next year. So we're wanting the sun's energy to stay with us. But the hedgerows are beginning to look frowsty, there's no new growth going on. All of the energy of the plants is going into producing the fruits and the seeds and the harvest to see us through the winter, and the seed for next year. On a mythical level, the god and goddess are in their prime. The god is a strong, virile man. The goddess is pregnant with the child that she will bear at Yule, which will be the rebirth of the sun god. And the god in his turn prepares to enter the underworld, leaving the goddess in charge of bringing on the harvest. So it is a time, if you like, of sadness, because the god and the goddess share final embraces before they have to part. So there is a sadness about it, which maybe is linked to the dying of the year and beginning to look towards the end of active growth. On the inner planes, obviously through the dark months, October to Yule, we nurtured seed, we planned activities, we planned maybe spiritual work, and now we begin to look and assess the harvest of that spiritual work and the inner work. And we look to and celebrate those tasks that we've actually completed. We identify maybe those things that we need another push of energy to bring to fruition. And also, to some extent, we have to face the idea that there are some of those seeds that we planted, some of those tasks that we plan to get done that are just not going to manage it this year, and so we need to put those back in the box, if you like, for bringing out again in a future season of activity. So it's a time of assessment, it's a time of being truthful with yourself, being honest with yourself, what you're going to be able to achieve, what you're not going to be able to achieve, but also for celebrating those things that you have achieved. So from that sort of general resume, if you like, of what Lammas is all about, the actual energies of Lammas, I've identified the following themes or the following issues that, you know, I've got representatives of those to put into the incense. First of all, we want the sun to continue. We want the sun's energy to continue to ripen the fruit and produce the seeds. We want the abundance to continue. We want to continue, our plants to continue providing us with food that we can either use now or store for the winter months by freezing, by making jams and chutneys and so on. I've also chosen as well a certain amount of grief and sadness because of the parting of the god and the goddess after months of being together and being productive. And I've also chosen fidelity as well, because they're going to part. They're going to part soon, and they're going to be apart until the god is reborn again with the midwinter solstice. So there's a parting, but there's a fidelity, because they will come back together again. He will be reborn and they will be together again. So I've got things like fidelity and things like reincarnation going on there. We also want to celebrate the goddess, because she is going to remain with us right the way throughout. She's going to be with us all the time. Even though the god descends into the underworld, the goddess is going to stay with us. And in terms of our inner work, like the sun, we want a last burst of energy in order to be able to bring our remaining projects to fruition. So we have the sun, we have abundance, we have grief and loss, we have an energy burst, we have the honouring of the goddess, we have fidelity, and we have reincarnation. Those are the main themes that I've chosen. Now the ingredients that I've chosen to sort of bring in those energies, if you like, are frankincense. Now frankincense is ruled by the sun, its element is fire, and it's masculine. So this is going for our sun energy and our abundance, because it's the sun that actually continues to make the fruit ripen. So frankincense for sun and the abundance of the harvest. As far as the goddess is concerned, the honouring of the goddess, we have yellow sandalwood here, which is ruled by the moon. Its element is water, and it's a feminine substance. So we have the honouring of the goddess, the celebration of the goddess in the sandalwood. For their love, for fidelity, I've chosen caraway. Caraway is ruled by Mercury, and its element is air. Instead of caraway, you could use clover flowers, and you could use nutmeg. And then for the final burst of energy, I've managed to grow some marigolds this year, and this is one that I've picked at the beginning of the week and dried. You can also use sunflower if you want, which has a similar sort of energetic kick, or you could use dragon's blood, pinch of dragon's blood. And lastly, my oil. I've chosen cypress. Now cypress is an oil, amongst other things, for dealing with grief, and this is the parting of the god and the goddess. So the oil I'm going to add to this particular incense is cypress. Okay, so we start with the ingredients. We start with the spoon, which I brought with me. Kath, if you're watching, but left over on the side. Okay, so we're going to start with a good part of frankincense, 1 part, and a bit of frankincense. And then to that we're going to add half a part maybe of yellow sandalwood. Does that look like about half? And then we're going to have a little grind of that together. And remember, the grinding is when you put in your intent. And here you might want to think about the energies of the season. You might want to meditate on those projects that you still want to bring to fruition when you're grinding these. And remember, it's up to you how lumpy you have it, how much you want to carry on grinding. As you know, I quite like mine to remain quite lumpy. Then I'm going to pop in, I think probably a quarter of a part of caraway. I'm not sure, I don't think I've ever included caraway in an incense before, so it's a bit of an experiment for me. Background. Well, now I'm going to take 1 marigold head, and I'm going to take the petals off it, the inner petals as well. It's not absolutely dry, that doesn't really matter. We can have a little bit of moisture in the incense, that's not a problem. If you wanted to include another seed head, you could do, it wouldn't matter. But basically you want some in there because I want the energy of the marigold, the final push of energy. So that leaves me with some nice yellow. Oh, and I can smell the marigold as well. Give it a little bit of a whiz around. And then I'm going to add a bit of 2 or 3 drops of the cypress oil. Right, there's 5 or 6 gone in there. And then we're going to stir that round. And that is beginning to develop a very interesting nose. And then, as ever, what we do, we've got almost a week. Jar it. This is the only jar I've got actually. I always advise coloured jars, amber jars, to keep the light away, but I don't guess this is going to keep around for very long. Excuse me, my cat's just come in and he's got a lot to say for himself. So jar it, let it amalgamate until you're ready to use it whenever you're going to celebrate your Lugnasah. I'm going to